on, MMA fans? I'm back to do my UFC 125 review video. Good night of fights. Was very, very impressed. Got to see the prelims at the sports bar I went to. They did put on Ion Television. If I have enough time, I'll go ahead and cover that. Something I just want to preface ahead of time. I don't know what it was with this sports bar, but usually they're cold. That's not a problem. You know, if you ever go to a restaurant, you know that you probably want to wear something warm because they try to keep it cold in there to try to turn tables to make people go, dang, it's cold, I need to leave. And then they got, more available seats for other individuals. But I don't know if it was a mix of the cold and the water, but man, I had to go to the bathroom so many times it was ridiculous. Probably too much information, but it's going to play a little bit of a part into how I break some of these down as far as my review is concerned. But let's go ahead and cover the main card, work our way up from the top to the bottom, and then if I've got a little bit of time, I'll talk about some of the other fights as well. Talking to Gomi versus Clay Guida. Not a big surprise here. Gomi did show some impressive takedown defense, which, I mean, it's not a big surprise. He's got excellent wrestling. We've seen that in the past with him. He's done a good job with his takedown defense. But I think the biggest thing was, like what I discussed in the predictions video initially, was that the pace, the movement that Guida uses, those are all things that were going to affect Gomi, and they definitely did. Guida was using some relatively unorthodox head movement, the way he was moving around, but regardless, he was able to, land some combinations on Gomi and score pretty well. And then in the second round, he's able to get a guillotine choke and tap Gomi out. So, Guida, again, I thought that in this fight would be able to keep the pace high and keep, Gomi from being able to really time anything, which is pretty much what we got to see out of this fight, and Guida wins. For Gomi, one of the things I said is the training a little bit too late for him. He looked like he had okay cardio in this fight. It wasn't, it didn't look like it was the best, but it looked like it was better. Is the training camps of him mixing it up a little bit too late? We're going to have to see. Is he going to get cut after this fight? We'll have to see. I think he's going to get one more shot, personally, before he gets cut. And if he doesn't win that fight, more than likely the UFC will cut him. For Clay Guida, he's continually going to get better. And I think we're just starting to see some slow progressions out of him since joining Greg Jackson. So it was a good fight to see a little bit of some new things that he hasn't shown in some of his other fights. So congratulations to him, and hopefully we'll see some more good stuff from him in the future. Nate Diaz versus Dong Hyun Kim. Pretty much no surprise here of what happened. DHK, I didn't mention this in my video before, but Tim, EBW Returns, he made, I think, probably the best breakdown out of anybody on YouTube on this fight. And credit goes out to you, EBW, if you watch this fight. But he talked about how there's certain things that Nate Diaz cannot deal with. A big guy, check. A solid wrestler, check. A very good grappler that can stay out of submissions, check. Good ground and pound, check. All of these things culminate into what DHK, and good hands, I'm sorry, check. All these things culminate into someone that can beat Nate Diaz. And that's exactly how, it should be broken down, because that's what Nate Diaz has had problems against. I talked about that. Joe Stevenson, Gray Maynard, these are guys that were able to put Diaz in precarious situations and put him on his back. And that's what happened in this fight. DHK was able to control the first two rounds with, some good takedowns, some good clinch positions. Had some good combinations on the feet. And then in the third round, he ran into some difficult, some difficult positioning in the clinch. Got hit a few times. I don't know if he was necessarily rocked or he just was fading as far as the cardio is concerned. And he has had some issues with that in the past. Diaz was able to put him into some tough situations in that third round. But Kim is able to hold on and win a unanimous decision, 29-28 across the judges' scorecard. And again, just better, just a bigger guy, good judo, good wrestling, very good positional control on top. Is able to stay out of submissions, and that's what he did in this fight. So congratulations to him. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world. Those of you that are, enamored by grappling. This was interesting to see how Diaz was able to use some of the sweeps that he did to get Kim back into full into half guard. But past that point, a lot of the casual fans probably wouldn't have found this exciting. Although, like I said, some of the scrambles and the grappling was very interesting. So DHK wins via unanimous decision for him. I don't know if his call out of GSP, if he's going to get that right away. He still needs a few more fights, I think, and needs to work on his cardio before we can even, consider a 5-round fight for him. For Diaz, he'll be back. Again, this was just a stylistic matchup that probably wasn't the best for him when you look at what each guy brings to the table. It'll be interesting to see what the UFC gives him next, but he will be back. On to the next fight, Thiago Silva versus Brandon Vera. Was talking to Sean Hatch, the MMA professor, and I don't think anyone could have expected what we saw out of this fight with Silva and Vera. It just, to really think that Brandon Vera would get taken down as many times as he did from the clinch, I don't think anyone really would have expected that, especially considering that Vera did so well against Randy in their fight in the clinch, and with Vera having the good Greco-Roman background, but Silva was just absolutely monstrous in this fight. Huge. He had good weight on him. He didn't have as much body fat as he did, for example, when you saw him against Rashad or even Machida. He had just pure muscle in this fight. Was able to really use his strength to his advantage. A lot of these takedowns were just pure strength that he used. He had a nice single leg takedown. He had a couple trip takedowns that were nice. And he is just able to stay on top of Vera and use good positional control on the top. He has a very good top game with his grappling and a very good top game with his ground and pound. And just was able to, do very, very good work inside a guard for 3 rounds by doing that. I can't remember which round it was. It might have been round 3 where he was... trying to remember exactly which round it was. I think it was round 3. He's throwing some pitter-patter hand slaps on Brandon Vera's back and then slapping him in the face. Silva controlled this fight for all 3 rounds. Good ground and pound, good positional control, looked good in the clinch, had some good boxing. Was throwing some shots against the cage when he had Vera's back and pinned him up against the cage, and landed some shots that ended up breaking Vera's nose, and it ended up looking like a log flume at the end of this. But Silva, just very impressive. I really can't say much more than I was really impressed with his offensive wrestling in this fight, how well he looked in the clinch, and how he was able to just manhandle and control Vera on the ground. And this was a fight where Brandon Vera broke mentally once again, and it looked like and I mentioned this before, but some of the gas tank issues I think played a little bit of part in this as well. Not only mentally, but with his physique and his cardio, I think that was also another factor. So, congratulations to Thiago Silva. Very impressed with this win, and hopefully we keep continuing to see a progression and an improvement from him. For Brandon Vera, is this his... Give me just 1 second, because I do believe... Let's sure dog this. Is this loss number 3? It is. So, he more than likely will be cut. That was where I was going with this. So, for Brandon Vera, more than likely, this was his last fight in the UFC. For Thiago Silva, again, very impressed. Keep improving. It'll be interesting to see who they give him next, but very, very impressed with this fight. Probably the most impressive performance on this card, to me at least, besides the main event, which we'll get to here in a couple minutes. But very, very impressed by what Thiago Silva did in this fight. Chris Lieben versus Brian Stann. Brian Stann surprised me in this fight. He was more technical than I thought he was going to be, and that's what happens. A guy can come out and do what he's done in the past, get with a new camp with Greg Jackson, and not be the guy that he used to be. And he has seemed to change a little bit as far as his technical striking is concerned and his boxing. Mixed it in well against Lieben, threw some nice little leg kicks to kind of throw Lieben off. and caught Lieben with some beautiful combinations, hit him with a left hook, then a right cross to drop him, and just pounded away on him and ended up getting the stoppage. So congratulations to Brian Stann. Oh, and he landed a nice knee. I forgot about that to cap off this fight. But anyways, Brian Stann looked impressive in this fight. Again, was countering Lieben and was being technical, which very, very good strategy. I don't know if that was what the plan was coming in against Lieben, if Jackson had drawn that up. But regardless, Stann was technical in this fight, didn't get sucked in to brawling, which was a good thing. Was impressed with that, and Stann ends up winning via TKO. So not much to say on that fight other than, it was an exchange where Lieben was throwing some combinations, and Stann just had the better technical boxing and landed some nice shots that ended up putting Lieben in a precarious situation, and Stann finishes him off. So congratulations to him. All right, on to the main event. This is the one that a lot of people are having, issues with this decision, and I'm going to be honest. I really am not that upset about it. The way I scored the fight, my round, the round 3, the way that I scored it was the pivotal round. If you scored it for Maynard, you have a 47-47 draw the way I scored it. If you score it for Edgar, Edgar wins this by a score of 48-47. So, it's not a terrible decision by any means. That first round was a 10-8 round. Some argue that it could have been a 10-7. Edgar did at least a little bit in the beginning of that round to not, I think, make it a 10-7. 10-7, the way that round would be scored is if Edgar comes out and the first punch is Maynard dropping him, and that's the whole round. If that would have been the case, that's understandable. But because you still had a little bit of time working into this, I don't know. That's just how I'm looking at it. You may disagree with me. That's fine. That's, how MMA works. We're all entitled to our opinions. But round 1, I had 10-8 for Maynard. Round 2, I had 10-9 for Edgar. Round 3, I had 10-9 barely for Maynard. I almost scored it for Edgar. But those last 2 hooks that Maynard landed in that round were the difference, I believe. Round 4, Edgar 10-9, and round 5, Edgar 10-9. If you scored it that way, you come out to a 47-47 draw. So, the thing of individuals, and I saw this on Sherdog saying that this was a robbery and that this is the worst decision since NamFan. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon. I think that's a little too much in this fight, especially considering how close it was. And that's why I'm not terribly upset about this. I'm just going to be honest. You may disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. But you can't sit here and look at these rounds. And if you even go look at Fight Metric, Edgar won rounds 2 through 5 barely by, I think, 9 to 10 strikes more. This was a close fight, everyone. A very, very close fight. And these rounds could have gone either way. That's just the nature of this type of fight, where you can argue it. And we can go back to BJ Penn Edgar. We can go back to Rampage Griffin. All these fights have those kind of rounds set up where it's an argument. What did you look at? What didn't you look at? And until the rules, I talked about this on Skype last night with a lot of the guys from the YouTube community, and everyone pretty much agreed. We're always going to argue this stuff until the judging criteria is better set up and the 10-9 must system is out of here, because it is not good for MMA and never will be, unfortunately. This is one of the few situations where I personally think, in my opinion, that one of the judges got this score correct. Again, you may not agree. You may think that Edgar won, and you may think that Maynard won, and that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and try to, sway you either way. I'm just letting you know that this is one of those fights where really anyone can argue something, and you can come out with a pretty, good argument if you have, facts backed from some of the rounds. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So let's just talk about this fight. I kind of wanted to put that out in the beginning because I just noticed a lot of complaining on this. And I think that if you watch this fight again unbiasedly, that's the key to all these fights. You cannot go in and say, well, I wanted Maynard to win, so I'm just going to watch this fight. And then you start looking at everything Maynard does. You got to look at everything in this fight. And I watched it again this morning, and guys, it's a close fight. Very, very close. Guys and ladies, a close, close fight. Let's just talk about some of the key things that really made this fight close as it was. The first round, we get in, I think it's probably about a minute, minute and a half, almost 2 minutes, and Maynard lands a beautiful left hook, rocks Edgar, and it's just downhill throughout the rest of that first round. How Frankie Edgar survives this, I really don't know. I mean, it's just heart, guts, determination. There were some people in the sports bar saying that when Edgar grabbed the cage, he should have been deducted a point. No, only because he didn't do it again. He was warned once. If we go back to Tito and Rashad, Tito was warned once to stop grabbing the cage, and then did it again, and then was deducted a point. You can't be one way in one fight and one way in another fight. It's one of the issues with judging and scoring as it is right now. We don't need to get into that, but, Edgar only did it once in that situation. And I went back and watched it because I wanted to see if, there was a justification, some individual saying that, but he grabbed it once when he was rocked, he let go of it, and really didn't grab it again. He kind of just put his hands up there and didn't fully grab on. So, 10-8 round I had for the first based off of that. Maynard just landing combination after combination. Again, I don't know how Frankie Edgar survived that. If Edgar had won this fight, it would have been probably one of the most impressive comebacks I have seen in mixed martial arts, considering what happened to him in the first round. It's still impressive regardless, even though this fight is a draw. Second round, Edgar does enough standing and landing some good combinations and leg kicks and some body kicks. One of the big things that I was really impressed with was the fact that Edgar's takedown defense was just so much better. I think that one of the big things that he worked on in this fight, not only was angles and footwork, but I think he worked on his wrestling a lot as well, knowing that that was going to be something that he may run into, and we got to see some excellent improvements. And that's one of the things about Frankie Edgar, and you can say this about Gray Maynard as well, because Maynard has done this too, but both of these guys are very, very good at when they've made mistakes the first time around, they always come back and improve on that stuff. So, in the second round, Edgar's also able to land a beautiful slam, picking Maynard up as he came in and got overzealous, which is something that Edgar did in the first fight, and this time around it was kind of Maynard that did it. And I think that won round 2 for Edgar. Round 3, very close round, back and forth for both of these guys. They both landed equal amount of shots. Edgar in this round, I think, only won the exchanges by 9 more strikes. But I think the last 2 punches of this round, plus that takedown, really is what solidified it for me for Maynard. So I gave round 3 to Maynard. Round 4, Edgar had the better technical boxing in this round, even though Maynard landed a couple power shots. Edgar was moving around more, had better leg kicks, had better overall boxing, and landed some nice overhand rights in this round. And kind of rocked Maynard a little bit. Round 5, again, much of the same. Some clinching in this round. Edgar, I think, did more in the technical boxing to win this round, and that's what I had it. Maynard was very good in this fight with some of his counter boxing, but he was really headhunting a lot. Randy Couture, I don't remember which round it was, but I think it might have been in the second, where he was really, really mad at Gray Maynard and said, "What are you doing? You're headhunting. Stop trying to knock this guy out and get in there and hurt him. Try to get in there and outbox him. Take him down." Maynard was landing some really good shots. He looked better in the third with some of his technical boxing, and even towards the end of the second a little bit. And then from there, we didn't see it again. It was just him kind of trying to land power shots. And that's not going to win you a fight, especially considering if a guy is outlanding you. And being more technical. So that's the only thing that I think Maynard may have made a mistake of in this fight. Otherwise, if he would have been a little bit more technical, these rounds could have been a little bit more contested, at least in my opinion, the way that I scored them for Maynard. So that's how I looked at this fight. This was a very, very close fight. Definitely an early fight of the year candidate, the way that this went down. And if Edgar doesn't get respect after this fight, I don't know what he's got to do. I really don't. He even tried to finish this fight several times. He went for a Kimura. He went for a guillotine choke. He went for some of the right hands that he landed. People are still jumping on this guy and saying that he doesn't finish fights. He's trying. It's just like GSP. As long as I see there's some type of attempt there, I don't really get upset with that per se. But for Maynard, Dana White did change around what was listed at the press conference that Pettis was getting the next shot. Maynard will get a rematch. I think he does deserve it. In the meantime, if Miller beats Shalarus, they should make the Miller-Pettis fight happen and make that for an interim belt until these two guys finish up their fight. And then if Soteropoulos wins, he's in the mix as the next #1 contender for lightweight. So I think that would be a good scenario. Let me know what you think about that. But both of these guys were very impressive. Maynard showed a lot in this fight. He showed that his boxing had improved. The only thing that, again, like I said, was a question in this fight to me was the fact that he was trying to headhunt a little bit, and he seemed to fade a little bit after the third round. I don't know if it was cardio. I don't know if it was mental breakdown. I really couldn't tell. It may have been that from the amount of punches he threw in the first round, not having good blood flow going to the arms, he just could have been tired at that point. I'm not sure, but Maynard was impressive. I was impressed with how he was able to land some really nice combinations in the third. And other than that, this fight, again, like I said, early fight of the year candidate, both of these guys were very impressive. This is one that, if you didn't get to see this fight, even if you're not going to be happy with the end result, you need to watch it because it was a good fight. And again, like I said, I think the justification of the draw was justified based on how I scored it. So congratulations to both guys. They will get to fight again. I think Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard both got much needed respect after this fight. A lot of people wrote this fight off, said it was going to be boring. I'm one that thought it was going to be a little bit not too fan friendly, but both of these guys proved that that wasn't the case. So hopefully each one of these guys gets a little bit more respect after this fight. All right, I'll talk about a couple of the fights that we did get to see on Ion. Jeremy Stephens versus Marcus Davis. Marcus Davis was controlling the first two rounds, I thought at least, even though I think Junkie gave this 10-9 to Stephens for the second. But round 3, Davis goes for almost a body shot, and Stephens throws a baseball pitch punch, hits Davis on the chin, follows it up with an extra shot that probably wasn't necessary, and knocks Marcus Davis out. So congratulations to him. Davis not successful in his 155 debut. Dustin Poirier versus Josh Grisby. Dustin Poirier put on a clinic in this one. I'll just touch on it very briefly. Muay Thai clinch, a lot of punches, and just really threw Grisby off in his game, and didn't allow Grisby to use his reach. So congratulations to Poirier. Wins a unanimous decision, 30-27. Phil Baroni versus Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares lands a nice high kick, kind of rocks Baroni. Baroni goes like this, then realizes, oh crap, I'm actually hurt. Tavares fakes the shot and then lands an overhand right, and from there, it was not so good for Phil Baroni. Brad Tavares wins via knockout, via strikes, so congratulations to him. I'll just touch on some of the other fights. I haven't seen these ones yet. Diego Nunes defeats Mike Brown via split decision. From the sounds of it, it was a close fight and a good fight, so I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Daniel Roberts defeats Greg Soto via Kimura. Jacob Volkman beats Antonio McKee via split decision. So that was my review for UFC 125. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments, constructive, negative, positive, as always. I'll be back the night of or the night after. Excuse me. What am I talking about? UFC 125 review. I'm still out of it this morning. That was my review of the event. Let me know what you think. I'll be back sometime, probably either today or in the next few days, to do that awards video because I promised I was going to do it. I had family in town. I'm sorry about that, guys. But I will get it knocked out here in the next few days. It may not be today, unfortunately, but I'll do my best to try to get it done. And then we've got some other MMA coming up and probably some topic videos, so make sure you stay tuned for those. And you guys take it easy.